Once the fight is over, Yukiko accepts her shadow, awakens to her persona, and that concludes the first dungeon. After this, it's pretty much our free time to do whatever we want. One thing to keep in mind about Persona 4 is that it's not as lenient with free time as Persona 3. Social links are harder to rank up and may or may not be available depending on the weather. On rainy days, most people won't be available, so on those days, you're best off just working on your stats or grinding. Oh, and also one thing that's cool about Golden is that if you click on this little bubble, you can see what other people did, which is pretty cool, though I don't actually recommend doing what it says most of the time. At this point, I'm mostly just focusing on leveling up my social stats, almost all of which is done in your room. The only new social links I start during this period are the Aeon with Marie, the Justice with Nanako, and the Hermit with the Fox. The thing is, there's really not much I can do at this point. Unlike Iwatodai, where there was lots of stuff to do in the city, in Inaba, there's really not much to do other than just talk to NPCs. The boy's name is Shida. After Yukiko recovers, we find out that exams are coming up, so I decide to spend most of my time studying. Before long, we see Kanji on the Midnight Channel, and after staking him out, talking to a very feminine-looking boy, and starting Yukiko's social link, we see him again and confirm that he is indeed the next victim, so it's back to the TV world to save him. Now, once I get to Kanji's dungeon, I find out that I am extremely underleveled. Thankfully, though, the enemies aren't that strong, and Chie's Galactic Punch definitely helps, along with Twin Dragons, but in most cases, it's not enough to kill them all in one turn. So I grind till level 14, during which time I get really lucky and get the absolutely essential skill card for Apt Pupil. This makes normally difficult encounters much easier with critical hit knockdowns, and then after that, I get the Sonic Punch skill card, so I can finally get rid of Cleave. And I also take every stat increase card I find. Now, the mid-boss is one of many strong physical tanky bosses. He uses Power Charge, Rebellion, and Tarukaja, but he also has really low agility. After I use Secunda on him, he can't touch me, and I beat him without a whole lot of trouble. After this, I continue through the dungeon some more until I get low on MP, after which I go to Yukiko's castle to grind some more. Now, you may be wondering why I'm grinding in such a low-level area, and this is because despite me being super over-leveled in this area, the cards that I get from beating the enemies are the same, and the HP and MP restoring cards are based on a percentage, not a set value. So by beating enemies in a low-level area, I can basically farm for unlimited MP and stat bonuses with minimal effort. During this time, I get the Tarunda skill card, and once I head back, I get the Dodge Wind skill card, and then the Single Shot skill card, which is even better than Sonic Punch. Before long, I do make it to the end of Kanji's dungeon, but at this point, I'm basically burnt out with this dungeon, and I also want to upgrade items before I challenge the boss. So I go home, upgrade items, and then come back the next day. So the way the fight against Shadow Kanji works is that he has two minions, the nice guy who is weak to fire and the tough guy who is weak to ice. The tough guy uses just physical attacks while the nice guy likes to use buffs and heal, so I recommend going for the nice guy first. Now, the main body itself specializes in electric attacks and ailment attacks, those two ailment attacks being Roar of Wrath, which enrages Chie and Yukiko, and Forbidden Murmur, which poisons you and Yosuke. He likes to spam these pretty much every turn, so unless you want to spend a crazy amount of money on ailment healing items, I don't think healing these ailments is worth it. You're better off just living with the poison and waiting for the rage to wear off. Like most bosses in this game, it's not that strong. The minions may give you some trouble, but once they're gone, this fight is a breeze. Now, the boss's trump card is Fanatical Spark, which is a strong electric move, but it's resisted by Izanagi, and Yosuke can't do that much damage anyway, so I recommend just defending with him. My strategy for this fight is to beat the minions first, debuff the main body, heal with Yukiko when necessary, and just keep repeating. Does take down a few of our party members, but not you, thankfully, because of his insanely high endurance, and overall, this fight is pretty easy. This boss goes down after about 20 minutes. After that, Kanji awakens and the day is saved. And now we just have to wait for him to recover, and we're pretty much free until then. During this period, I do start the Empress social link with Margaret and the Jester with Adachi, though for now I'm mostly going to be focusing on the party members since it actually gives them abilities that they can use in battle. Eventually, the fog does come in and nobody appears on the TV, meaning the perpetrator has been thwarted once again, and Kanji joins our party. But that doesn't mean we're done with the TV world just yet. I go back a few days later to the TV world to grind and beat the optional bosses. Yeah, after you beat the main boss of a dungeon, you can go back a few days later and an optional boss will be there. And if you beat it, you get courage points and an item. I remember these bosses being really hard when I played this game as a kid, but I also had less experience with Megaten back then, so let's see how bad these are. Well, the boss at Yukiko's Palace certainly isn't hard. Its only strong move is Rampage, and the boss of Kanji's dungeon is a little harder. It has some elemental attacks and some physical moves, and it keeps targeting Yukiko with Fufula, and it even kills her a few times, but it is also weak to electricity, so I just spam that while keeping its attack down with Tarunda, and it goes down without too many problems. A few days after that, we get access to the motor scooter. Now, this thing lets us drive around to unlock new places, and once we drive around 3 times, we get access to Okina City, which has a place called Chagall Cafe. Now, remember what I said in the beginning about being able to get skill cards from personas? Well, in Chagall Cafe, you can spend 5,000 yen, and Walter White here will give you his special coffee, which will knock you out and give you a skill card. You know that skill card icon that's next to some skills on personas? That's the skill card that you're going to get from your persona if you do this. This is how I'm going to be getting skill cards from personas. At least that's what I would be saying, but right at this moment, I realize that in order to get the skill card, you actually need to have that persona equipped, and that would be breaking the rules. I mean, I suppose I could make an exception for this since it's not in battle, which is what matters, but at the same time, I feel like so far this challenge has been much easier than I was expecting, and I do want to keep things interesting, and also the whole randomness factor to it all kind of makes it more fun, so for now, I think I'm going to ban the use of Chagall Cafe. However, this also makes doing most non-party social links kind of pointless. I'm still going to do them for story reasons and also Marie so I can get her dungeon, but I'm not going to be sweating over getting the right answers to them every time, and I'm going to prioritize party members' social links since it gets them skills and abilities that I can actually use. Anyway, after a failed attempt to pick up girls and a camping trip later, we max out Yosuke's social link, and he awakens to his ultimate persona. After that, we get back in the swing of things, and we suspect that the next victim is going to be Rise Kujikawa. A few days later, our suspicions are confirmed. So, we gather info and go to her dungeon, which is one of my favorites in this game. When we get here, it's basically the same deal as Kanji's dungeon, where the enemies are super overleveled. Though they're still pretty easy, and most are weak to electricity. They don't actually become a challenge until about the 7th or 8th floor. Now, one thing that's cool about this dungeon is that this is where I start getting Magician Arcana cards. These are the cards that upgrade your skills. Aki becomes Miragi and Tarunda becomes Matarunda through doing this. I also get a few decent skill cards from the sword cards, like to Okina City, which has a place called Chagall. During this time, the new skills I get are Evade Wind, Power Slash, Marakunda, and Masukunda. But the best thing I get, though, without doubt, is the Patient Collar, which contains Endure, an absolute godsend since I can't get Endure from Shuffle Time sword cards. After doing enough grinding, I come back the next day to challenge her.
No, don't say it! You're not me!
As for this boss, there's really not a lot to say. It has all elemental attacks, all the break skills, and Mind Slice and Spirit Drain. Just like with Shadow Kanji, it may look threatening on paper, but it's really not. It's just another damage sponge. This fight pretty much goes normally until she uses Supreme Analysis, which prevents us from hitting her. Like, at all. Yeah, you don't actually defeat this boss, because Rise accepts her shadow before we can actually beat it. But we're not done yet, because Teddy now has a shadow. And Teddy denies his shadow.
I said shut up!
Yeah, kinda weird that the guy who told everybody not to deny the shadow does the same thing, but then again, this is Teddy we're talking about.
I shall give you the truth you claim to hold so dear.
Everyone has Uno, dipshit. It came free with your fucking Xbox.
Now, Shadow Teddy's fight is much more difficult than Shadow Rise. He only has ice magic attacks, but he also has some very strong physical attacks and likes to use Maracunda and Dekunda. But what really makes him threatening is that he charges up his attacks. However, this also makes him much more predictable. He usually charges before using Mabufula or Nihil Hand, so make sure you defend. He also has another attack that knocks down party members, but he rarely uses it. He also has Foolish Whisper, which silences the party, but we're going to be using mostly physical attacks anyway, so I really wouldn't worry about that. The strategy is basically to heal with Yosuke while just spamming physical attacks with everyone else. After about 20 minutes, Shadow Teddy goes down. During this next free period, I start Kanji's Social Link and max out Chie's Social Link, and thankfully in P4 I can do female character Social Links without actually romancing them, but this game doesn't punish you anyway, so if you want to romance them all, knock yourself out. But anyway, the fog comes in, nobody shows up on the TV, and the day is saved once again. Or so we think. The next morning we find out that there is another victim. Our very own King Moron. So now we're at a standstill with things. At least that's what I thought at first, but I guess it must not be too important because everyone seems to forget about him once Teddy shows his uniform. After that feminine boy from earlier introduces himself as now Shirogane. Rise then joins as our Nav, meaning Teddy is now our new fighting party member, and then Igor explains advanced fusion to us, even though we won't be using it. The next day, Naoto comes to us, and surprise, they supposedly found the guy behind it all. But we still can't do anything, so I go back into the TV where I fight the optional boss in 3 seasons. And on the way there, Agilao becomes Miragion, and then Power Slash becomes Mighty Swing, which becomes Gigantic Fist, which then becomes Brave Blade. That's the 3rd strongest move in the game, and I have it on the 3rd dungeon. Talk about game-breaking mechanics. Anyway, just like all the other optional bosses, this boss isn't hard at all. Brave Blade doesn't really make the boss any less spongier, but it does do an insane amount of damage compared to everyone else. Overall, this fight is pretty easy. It just spams physical attacks with the occasional rebellion on itself. I figure if it's going to do that, there's no reason not to have Chie use Revolution. So I do that, and then Izanagi becomes an absolute critical hit machine. And Brave Blade is so strong, it actually does more damage than an all-out attack. I mean, I didn't even realize it was weak to ice until halfway through the fight. Although, some cheese does happen at the very end. He gets a critical hit with Rampage, kills Kanji, uses it again, kills Teddy, and then uses it again on Yu, which would have killed him, but thankfully he survives thanks to the patient caller. Remember in my intro to SMT video where I said to always use Endure? I wasn't hitting, and this is a perfect example of why. But after that, not much happens. Not that I need it, I do start Dojima's Social Link and max out my knowledge, meaning I now get the highest score on every exam. And after the exam, I start Rise Social. Then, at the end of July, we see someone on the Midnight Channel again, and after investigating, we identify the guy as Mitsuo Kubo, who is believed to be the killer. He's apparently hiding in the TV world to avoid the cops, so it's up to us to catch him. And let me just say, this is probably my favorite dungeon in the entire game. Everything from the design to the music. Now, the enemies in this dungeon aren't as overleveled as past dungeons, but either way, Brave Blade makes all these encounters a complete joke. If it doesn't kill them in one hit, it'll knock them down with a critical, and Reset also helps with all-out attacks. That's pretty much what I do for every encounter. Brave Blade and then all-out attack. While going through, I do get the skill card for Samari Karm, which is a great skill, but I don't see myself using it, so I decide to teach Izanagi Megiddo instead. But besides that, nothing interesting happens. I don't even think the mid-boss is worth going over because it's just a black hand that goes down super fast. By the time I reach the main boss, Izanagi is level 40 and has over 70 in strength, magic, and endurance.
Discord. No way I'm spending 30 minutes trying to do this. It's one simple raid. I swear if I'm the only Usopp again. actually upgrade Usopp, bro? And stop being a little bitch about money? Holy hell. It's always the kids who care about the money. They don't upgrade their shit. Please, bro. And it's because we don't have a Griffith buff. Like, we could easily do the rat. And of course it started, bro. How long has it been, bro? 40 minutes. 40 minutes of me trying to beat this stupid raid. Because I need the relic shirt, I need the coins. No, I'll just host my own, bro. That explains a lot, bro. Oh, Griffin. Oh, let's go. Let's go, man. I've been praying for a Griffin buff. No, if I was really praying, I would have just pulled them out. But I really feel like sacrificing 2 of these dudes. Nobody's gonna place? God damn! I think we get past the red, Oh my god. Thanks for the I thought it Oh boy. Thing. Play a different game. Holy. Let's play Blade Ball. Yes, I am playing Blade Ball. That's crazy. What the fuck?